All right, welcome back to another episode of Ag Warriors. Really excited today to have Jake Jass on with me. Jake's probably one of my closest friends, and have really grown to admire Jake, just kind of for who he is and the way his brain works. So I'm super excited. Jake, thanks for coming and being a part of Ag Warriors.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm excited. Obviously, the feeling's mutual. We've been friends now for quite a few years, and we both push each other and bounce ideas off each other. It's been a very good friendship for me. So, and then also I'm kind of a podcast junkie. So,
Yeah, you listen to a lot more podcasts than I do.
I do.
Yeah.
I pretty much so. Yeah, obviously, I travel a lot for work. Maybe not obviously. So I'm a sales manager for Copperhead Ag, and part of that is visiting customers and then doing the farm show circuit, right?
That's where we met, man.
Right.
Farm show circuit is right.
Right. So, all those miles on the road, there's nothing that I like more than throwing a podcast on. And, for farmers, I think this is a great medium because, you've got hours in a tractor.
Yep.
And it's if you're looking to work on your farm, just be entertained, improve yourself mentally, physically, however it is. A podcast is a great place to
Ag
go.
Warriors is the place to be.
Absolutely.
Maybe. We'll
Absolutely.
see. We'll see. It's early. We don't know.
No, so far what I've heard has been fantastic, and I'm excited for you to get to share people's stories and a little bit of your thought process behind making something great. And
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. I mean, that's what I'm excited about is to share stories, and the whole point, like we talked about, is to share stories of people that are influencers, people that are outside the box thinkers, manufacturers, farmers, and just different people that have battled kind of their whole life. That's where the Warriors came through. I mean, I know a lot of farmers battle, like everybody has different battles, and so that's what I want to chat about. I mean, obviously, the Copperhead Thunderstruck relationship, we've been working together for a long time, and that's kind of where this friendship started. But you're so much more than that, and that's what I wanted to dive into a little bit. Now, you've been in actual battles, right?
Sure. Yeah.
In actual battles.
Well,
so,
somewhat, yeah.
Somewhat, yeah.
At least had people shooting at me.
Right. So served for a lot of years. But before we get into that and kind of talk how you've grown and different things like that, I've asked everybody at the start of the podcast,
Okay.
what's your weapon of choice? And we've had some good ones. We've had like Meridat, Meridat, right? Thunder family. His was his charisma, right? So his weapon of choice. So I want to know what and your unofficial title of this is the Heartthrob of Ag. What is Jake Jass's weapon of choice?
Oh, okay, this is kind of a surprise for me.
Yeah, you didn't know.
And would you say you're talking about just more in daily life?
Well, not necessarily. If you had to go to battle, Meridat didn't understand the question, right?
Sure.
So Quick Dick, he was a sickle. His weapon of choice was a sickle.
Okay.
Eric Jenkins, his weapon of choice was a brush grapple, the Super Duty, because he could crush people and kind of keep it at arm's length out.
Okay.
I was a baseball bat. What's your weapon of choice? It could be a gun. It could be a knife. It could be a bow.
Sure.
It could be your stunning good looks.
I feel like I'm fairly handy with quite a few different weapons. There's
not one particular one.
Well, yeah. But if I had to pick one thing to do, I'm a big hunter, and so that's a big pre-qualification for this. So I would say actually it'd be a bow. I like being in close. I like being close in with my game. I like to have intimate knowledge. I like to have to work a lot harder for it, and getting that nice close shot. And then also a bow is very lethal. If you've got a good sharp broadhead and you make a good shot, that animal's going down now, and there's no suffering. So for me, that's what I'm going with.
So you're going with a bow.
I'm saying, yep.
Do you remember last year, farm show, we had a little bit of a barbecue. You brought your bow out and you shot an arrow so deep into the tree you could not get it out. Do you remember that?
Right.
You got really intimate with that game.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I lost a couple field points. I'm shooting for people that are archery people. I shoot a really heavy setup. I shoot just about 80 pounds on the bow, and then I've got my arrows are heavier arrows, and I have a 200 grain broadheads with an extra tip on it that adds an extra 100 grain. So when that thing hit the tree, it just, I mean,
I remember
sank.
you were out there for a long time trying to get it out.
I was pulling and pulling, and I eventually had to thread the arrow out and leave the broadhead or the field tip in the tree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's in Iowa somewhere.
It is.
Well, we don't know. It's not somewhere. We know where it is.
Yeah,
It's
I can
just
tell
not
you what
coming
tree
out.
it's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, weapon of choice is a bow. Okay, so part of the cool thing about this podcast is getting to know you a little bit. So I want to walk through kind of like you've done so many different things. I think, and I think that's why we've kind of connected. But I mean, where'd you grow up? Let's talk about that. Like, what was your childhood like?
Sure.
Like to become this, gotta have some shit that was awesome as a kid, right? Like, where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born in Iowa, and both grandparents farmed in Iowa, and my dad farmed in Iowa for about
Grew up on a farm.
15 years. Yeah. We moved off when I was about 7.
Okay.
So, and I probably was the kid that would have taken over the farm. I'm the youngest of 4, but just knowing my brother and knowing my sisters, I would have been the one that farmed. But we moved off. We needed to look for other opportunities at that point, and so moved off the farm. Bounced around a little bit there, and then my dad landed a great job in South Dakota. He moved up about 6 months before us, and then we followed once he kind of figured the place out and had a house bought.
And where in South Dakota?
Brandon, South Dakota, which is just east of Sioux Falls.
Okay.
Quickly growing town over there, Brandon, South Dakota. Yeah.
Okay.
So moved there in 6th grade and graduated from there. My folks are still there.
All right.
Met my wife there.
In Brandon.
Yep.
We have a Brandon
Yep.
in Manitoba too. So
Yep.
Probably.
Yep.
Oh, you've
I've
been there. Yeah,
Yep.
you
You
have
bet.
been.
A couple times for the farm show.
Yeah. So grew up in basically formative years in Brandon. Went to high school there.
Yep.
What? Obviously athletic.
Yep.
A little bit, anyways. Some sports.
Yep. Well, I guess if we're laying it out, I was an all-state football player, and I placed in state in wrestling.
So very athletic.
And
In high school, not so much anymore.
I had.
Well, I don't know. You and Braden the other night, you looked like you were going to wrestle. He didn't want none of it.
Well, fitness has always been a big part of my life. It was sports, and then it was Army, and then I got out, started driving for a living, and you just immediately start to put pounds on, and I went, all right. So my very first bonus check that I ever got from Copperhead, I bought a treadmill with.
Yep.
And we wore that thing out. My family just pounded that thing, and so fitness has kind of always been a part of my life.
Ever since high school.
Yeah, forever.
What was it like? Like I didn't wrestle. We know that. Not that guy. But
Sure.
I heard it was really hard to cut weight. Like I remember wrestlers in high school cutting weight, but I didn't really ever get that. How hard was that? Or were you trying to put on weight? Like what spectrum were you at?
So I was in a weird deal. So I grew fast, and so I was the size that I am as a sophomore. So I was pretty good size, really. I think I was 182 pounds as a sophomore, and I
Okay.
couldn't beat the 171 pounder that we had at the time. So I wrestled up. I wrestled 189. The weight classes were a little different then. So there was, that's almost it's an 18-pound gap.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I wrestled up at 89. I actually wrestled 89 all 3 years. And my senior year, I would just have to not eat supper the night before I weighed in. So, I was like right at that 190, 191, just a really nice weight to be at. So my friends, my buddy Aaron,
He had to cut weight hard.
cut weight extremely hard. Yep. And
I couldn't break 160 coming out of high school. I was a little guy.
sure.
5'9", 160. Couldn't get past 160. I was like, man, someday I'm going to get past 160.
Yep.
Now it's way in the rearview
And
mirror.
back then I had a mental block. I actually didn't think I could make 171. And looking back at it now, I know I could have.
Right.
That
That happens in life,
you get
though.
a lot
You get
tougher when you're older.
Yeah, well, and those blocks happen. One of the things, I'm going to check my mic. Look down. This is only our 5th episode or something like that, 4th episode. Make sure your mic's on. Is the red light going? Red
Yep,
light? Okay,
yep, I
we're
got a
good.
red light.
I think we could do that in the middle of a podcast. Tommy, if we screwed that up and ruined this whole thing, I'm sorry. But graduated high school.
Yep.
decided that you wanted to serve your country, I mean, you're the first veteran I've had on.
Sure.
And we've talked, like, my grandparents both fought in World War II. My uncles both fought in Vietnam. But I, didn't really have a lot of friends that served growing up. Just, I don't know, maybe that's just where I grew up, etc. But you're my first probably close friend that served, and we've talked a little bit about it. But what made you go into the Army and say, hey, I want to go serve my country?
Well, it's funny. When I was younger, we would play, like war games and stuff like that, just as kids running around with, fake guns or whatever. And I always said, there's no way I'm going to be in the Army because you probably die.
Right.
And
I mean, there's a chance.
right. So then when I was 17, I was walking through the hallway at school and trying to, I was like, how am I going to pay for college? And then that, the guard recruiter thing popped into my head, and it was, well, if I join the guards, I can get my college paid for. And so I was in chorus in high school too, and I sat down next to my buddy Aaron, who's a wrestler and also in chorus. And
what's chorus?
Chorus, choir, singing.
Oh, choir.
Yep.
Okay. Oh,
Yep.
like chorus. Like you were.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
South Dakota accent got me there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you sang?
Oh, yeah.
Right, because I remember you are a pretty decent singer.
Yep.
And an average rapper.
Probably below average. Well below average.
Okay.
We don't need to test that.
No,
theory.
we're not going to do it on the podcast.
No. But anyway, so I sat down next to my buddy Aaron and I said, hey, you're going to think I'm an idiot, but I'm thinking about joining the National Guard. And he looked over at me and said, no kidding, me too. And so we went and signed up together, raised our hand on the same day, and decided to be in the Guards. And it was really after that, I'd say, that I really, and I was always probably somewhat patriotic, but not in the way that I am now. And I was so happy. And it's weird to say that now, and my parents would just make their skin crawl, I'm sure, being a parent now. But when they called my name and said I could go serve in war, I was excited to go because.
You mean as a guardsman?
Yep. Yeah. So so your National Guard, your first mission is to your state, but you also have a federal mission.
Right.
So if anything happens within the state, you're getting activated to go help with a flood or any kind of disaster, or if you needed security. But you have a federal mission that's just like the Army. So all your training is exactly Army training. You go to the same Army basic training. You go to the same.
What was basic training like?
Training school. It was doable. It was my first time from home. And so. It's 9 weeks long.
17?
I was
18?
I would have been 18 when I left. I joined when I was 17. My parents signed the paperwork so I could join the Guards at 17. I finished out high school, and then August, after I graduated from high school, I went to basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia. And Fort Benning is sandy, and it's either really cold or really hot.
Right.
It's like there was no middle ground in Georgia, and it's tough. It's physically tough, and they're wearing you down constantly. It's like wake you up at 4 a.m. Hey, you got to do this, and then you do this big job, and then it's like as soon as you're done with it, they say, all right, undo it, and it's just that kind of thing. You just have to do stuff because you have to.
Right.
And if you can just say, all right, this is the next job, and just do the next job, and not worry about what's going to come after. And just keep doing the next job that you have to do. That's kind of what got me through basic training anyway.
Do you think that mentality has kind of helped you through some of the tougher things in life and sales and just what you do, is that learn how to just do the next job?
I think I do it all the time now. I know that I when I'm in a tough situation, like buying the gas station, and I own a little gas station in town here. And it took me like a year and a half to get through the buying process because there were so many problems that happened during the process. And I probably should have quit. Not looking back on it now, but I had to just keep, what thread can I pull on? What's the next thing that I can do? And I would just do that until I couldn't do it anymore. And then maybe you'd have to sit back for a week and regroup and think about what's the next thread I can pull. And I absolutely just what can I, this sucks. What can I do?
Yep.
You know.
So you got through basic training,
Yep.
and now you're serving in the Guard,
Yep.
and then you got a phone call to go serve overseas,
Yep.
and that was a big moment for you.
It was. It was. I was getting close to the end of my side. I had been in about 4 years or so when we got the call, and so it was 05, 06 were the years that I was in Iraq, and
So after 9/11, so you were in
yeah.
the
So
Guard
actually, 9/11 happened while I was in basic training.
in Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of East Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it
Yeah,
is
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely went on high alert. You know, we thought before I left, my recruiter said, "Hey, they're gonna try to make you think that you're going to war when you go to basic training." And so I
But
was.
don't
ready
worry
for that.
about it. Don't
Right.
don't
Don't
freak
worry
out.
about it. Don't
Yeah.
freak out. They're gonna say, "Hey, we're gonna load you up and take you to war." And so
then-
we go into this room and they're showing these videos of the towers burning down and all that, you know, in the news. And I'm like, man, this is elaborate.
Yeah, they're
you know,
really.
and they start taking people out for guard duty on the, you know, on the base, like blocking off all the roads, and we're doing all these extra shifts and rotations, and we're not even fully trained, and we're doing all these jobs. And
Man, I can't imagine that. 18.
I did not believe it for at least 24 hours. I called my parents the next day. They let us have a little bit of phone time the next day because of everything that had happened. They knew everybody would want to, because you only get maybe to call home every couple weeks.
Right.
So, and you maybe only get 3 minutes or 5 minutes on the phone, but you get just a little, hey, you know, I'm doing all right, you know, how's things there? And
Yep.
so I called and said, yeah, this, you should hear, this is crazy that, you know, they're saying that this happened. You know, the Twin Towers got ran into with airplanes, and my mom's like, yeah, that happened. That's real, Jake. And I went, holy crap, you know, and
Right.
and it all changed because I got into a guard that hadn't been doing anything real active, you know, and we'd done Desert Storm, you know, nobody's going anywhere. So I was thinking I was going to have this cush service.
Get college paid for.
Right. And
So
then,
you weren't nearly as patriotic when you joined the Guard.
no,
You were just like, I'm gonna get some
I was
college paid.
in it for the money. I
Right.
was in it for the money.
Right.
No doubt.
And then that changed.
It did. When I got called, I was happy to get called.
Did your buddy that signed up with you get called at the same time?
He did get called, but he got out. He didn't go on a medical problem. He had knee issues, and so he was not able to go overseas with us. But yeah, so we.
Were you? What was that like when you told your parents like, "Hey, I'm going"?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a surreal kind of. Mostly for me anyway. I just wanted to get there. You know,
Right.
I just want to go. I want to do my pre-training. I want to get ready. I want to become the killer I need to be. And I want to go over there and do my job and come home. You know.
Right.
And for me, I'm just thinking odds, right? I'm thinking about all the guard units out of South Dakota that I know, and South Dakota's got outstanding guard units. Our Bravo battery, we're a field artillery unit I was in. Our Bravo battery was best battery in the nation.
Wow.
And that's counting Army. Like all regular Army units, we 1 year won best battery in the nation in the field trials. So
That's cool.
We have a solid unit. And I'm like, okay, I can go to war with these guys. You know,
Right.
We're going to do a good job, and I'll come home. It ended up we did lose some soldiers over there. We lost 4 guys in 2 separate really big incidents, and it was a lot tougher span to be there than I thought it was even going to be. But luckily, you know, God was watching over me, and I was one of the ones that made it home and get to, you know, carry on living this life for those guys.
So I don't know. I mean, and this is deeper than we've gone really with anyone, but you know, even deeper than maybe me and you have talked before. But what was it like when you were over there? Were you feeling like, I'm doing what I need to do? This is what my country needs. And
Yeah.
then how, when you came home, right?
Mm-hmm.
More patriotic than ever. Because you're one of the most patriotic guys I know. You love, I mean, there's a couple things I know you love. You love your country. You love your state. I know you love your wife and your kids, right? I know you love your job, right? You love what you do helping farmers, right? But I know a lot of people, you know, when you hear about, they go, they serve, they come back, and they're disillusioned.
Yeah, and I would say even some of the people that went with me had a different experience than I did. And it's, life is all about perception and sort of what you make of it, right? And so for me, it was the kids, really. So I went on a lot of combat missions. What we were doing was going out to police stations and supporting Iraqi police was mostly our job. And there was kids everywhere you go, and we'd flip them $5. Hey, go get me a Pepsi, and so they'd run to the market and get you, and they'd get to take that change home to their family. And
that's
then
cool.
my mom's a school teacher, or was a school teacher at that time. She's retired now, but they took up collections of pencils and paper and school supplies and all that. We got to deliver that to the kids and pass it out. And then the Iraqi people. We had an interpreter who's just the most patriotic man you could ever think of. He's from Baghdad. He was actually a professor at Baghdad University. And when this happened, I think he served like 4 tours, which is so dangerous as an interpreter. And when we left, we were like, "Hey, Billy, you gotta quit doing this. You're gonna die." He had 2 brothers that were Iraqi police that had already died, and we're like, "Man, you gotta stop. I know it's for your country,
Right?
But would I stop for my country, for my town? If it was in your town,
Right.
you wouldn't quit,
Right.
So,
Do you still stay in touch? Like,
yeah, we're Facebook friends.
Are you?
Yeah.
the
you bet.
the power of Meta. Your Facebook friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's
He
that's
actually ended
cool.
up getting a graduate degree from the University of Iowa. After all that, so he's an incredibly smart man, and like I said,
Wow.
patriot. So, but the people, and for me, people is what it's all about everywhere.
Right.
In my town, it's about the people here, and in the war, it's about the people and just trying to be helpful on the daily. The overall mission. I don't know. I don't know whether the overall mission was a great mission or not. It certainly isn't since we pulled out. Had we stayed there, done a Germany type thing, and stayed there and occupied it and helped for the next 80 years and really established democracy, well,
Right.
maybe. We were there for the first free election. We got the
big
guard on
deal.
that. That's a huge deal. And those
Yep.
people were so proud to go to that election. And so those are the things that I focus on. There's a lot of crappy stuff that happened.
Yep.
But for me, it was the people and the kids. And,
Shot out. How dangerous was it? What's the closest that you for you, anyways,
Sure.
that you were like, man, right? I'm good.
I guess there's 2 things that I usually tell people about that. One is it wasn't a war like World War II was a war where there's a front line and you're fighting somebody.
Right.
You're just living in a zone that's a dangerous zone. And so the dangers for us were mortars and rockets coming into our base where we lived, and then being a guy that was on the road. I was a gunner in a Humvee, so you see the Humvees driving around, the guy standing on the top with a gun. That was me. And you're just the roadside bombs,
Right.
bombs and car bombs was the trouble, and that's how we lost. We lost a couple guys in a roadside bomb, and then we lost a couple guys in a car bomb backed up by a roadside bomb, and so that was the concern. My squad was incredibly lucky. So you broke down into groups of 12 guys that makes up a squad.
Yep.
You roll out in 4 trucks, 3 guys per truck, and you work together as a team to complete your mission. I had 192 missions that I went on in just under a year.
192.
Yep. And
That's like every other day. A little more than every
more
other
than
day.
that, yep,
Yeah.
a little bit, and then we pulled guard duty on the guard towers besides that and whatever. But the so it was the mortars and the bombs. So my squad was lucky. What I was getting at was we never had a bomb go off on us. Almost every other squad got hit by at least 2 or 3 IEDs. In my squad, the closest we had was one went off about 100 yards behind us, and they just missed us. And man, I was the front truck, and I heard that blast go off, and oh fuck, you stand up and turn around and look, and you just expect to see dead people. And all the trucks were there, and I'm like, we're up, keep rolling, you know. And we did the rest of our mission. You got to kind of cordon off and do some things after a bomb goes off, but we got that cleared up and went and did our mission and went home,
Oh man.
In the month of, I think it was the month of July, we had I think over 150 rockets and mortars shot at our base. So while you're sleeping at night, you just go to bed, you say your prayer, you pull the covers over, and you say, in Iraq they say "Khale Welen," which I don't even know what it means, but it's kind of like it's going to be a good day, or like "Khale Welen,
hopefully
Rahi Salan." I don't even know what it means, but it's like it'll be what it'll be kind
Right.
of thing. That's how I took it. Anyway, I might be completely wrong, but that's
right.
how I took it.
We're going to get people, if anybody listens to this, we're going to get people come in and say, you were swearing on AgWarriors in a different language. You don't even
Right,
know.
right, yeah, it could be.
Right.
My Arabic's okay, but it's not. It's mostly based around bullets and guns and things like that. But
Right.
But anyway, you just give it up, and then when the bombs start going off, you just grab your flak jacket, grab your gun, and you run to the bunker. And
100.
it's just the way you live your life.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, served for 2 tours?
No, just one tour in Iraq. Yep.
1 tour in Iraq. How
Yep.
many years total in the Guard?
I was in service for 7 years. It's an 8-year contract. They put you in a pool after you're out of the Guards called the IRR. It's how they keep the draft from coming back. They keep people that are transitioning out in a little pool so they can pull you back in if they need to.
Right.
While your contract's still up. So, but they held me past my. Normally I would have got out in 6 years, but I was in Iraq on my 6-year anniversary, so I was held over just a little bit, and got out 90 days after I got back.
Okay. And then went to school?
I actually no. I started working for people with horses, and I started a horse training business
So wait a minute. You went into the Guard so you could pay for your school,
as a college student. Yeah,
Right.
I got pulled out of college and went to war.
and then never finished college.
And then not till I think I graduated when I was 28 or 29.
Okay.
I went back to school online
So you went
later.
You went and started training horses,
Yeah.
breaking horses.
Yep.
What was
Yep.
that
Breaking
like?
horses, showing horses. It
Like-
was the best, man. It was awesome. I had this, I don't know, I had a pony when I was a kid, and then when I was in high school, I'd just date whatever girls had horses so I could ride horses. And
That's how you picked your girlfriends?
kind of. I mean, not on purpose, but it kind of worked
If any
out
of your
that way.
girlfriends are listening to this, they're going to be like,
They're
"That-
not listening.
that-
They don't
that-
give a crap about me anymore.
Right. That guy, man, I knew he was only after me for my horse.
Well, and that's the kind of people that I like. I like country people. I like
Right.
people that, if you're really a horse person, it's funny. You have to have a little bit of steel. You have to have a little bit of nerve. It's like you get back bucked off, you get back on. It's that mentality. It's sort of like do the next thing you can
Right.
do. And
I was just going to say that like that. So
Yep.
you go from, just do the next thing, you get bucked off, you get back up.
Right. And so I did that. I did that full time for 5 years. I got married, had a stepson.
Okay, so that's when you met Cindy, was when you were training horses.
Well, no, I mean we were in high school together. But when I got back from Iraq, I called her up and
So
we started.
she didn't have a horse in high school. So you didn't
No,
you didn't date her in
no.
high school. You just knew her, but
No,
you
we
were like-
dated. We
You
dated.
did.
She was one of
One of the ones that did not have a horse,
Yep,
though.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, that probably one of the only girls I dated in high school that didn't have a horse.
And
Yep.
that's who you ended up marrying.
Yep. And
So
actually,
maybe
I
you're
was-
not a horse guy.
right. Maybe not. Maybe not.
So you dated Cindy in high school and then went off to serve in the Guard.
Yep.
And broke up.
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Keep in touch throughout the war and all that?
Yeah, actually, we weren't even dating the whole time I was there. I had a pink bracelet on my wrist. Not a bracelet, a hair tie that I wore on my wrist. It was good luck. It was from her. She had a blue one that she wore the whole time. It's weird that we weren't, like, she was dating another guy that whole time.
Right.
And
wearing your
and-
blue bracelet,
Yep.
though, just to
Yep.
bring some luck.
Yep. We were connected still. We talked on instant messenger back in the day.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
A lot harder to communicate back in the mid 2000s.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Instant messenger was great though.
So came back, started training horses, and was like, "Hey, I'm back.
Yep.
You need to break up with that fool. I still got your bracelet."
Yep. Yep. Let's go. Let's go. And she had a son in that time, and we got married when he was 4.
Okay.
He's actually now going to be a sophomore at University of South Dakota. So
He was
had
testing
him-
you a little bit
had him
last
for
night.
15
Just wanted to see.
He's
And
tough.
asked him
He's tough.
if he could take you yet, and straight up he was like, "Nope, not yet."
Well, he's such in some ways a practical kid. But he'll push me. He's a tough kid. He was
Yeah.
a basketball player though, so I mean, and I
And
got
football player.
yeah, I still got 50 pounds on him though. So once he catches up in weight, he'll
Mid
take me.
20s.
He's a lot more solid than I am.
There's gonna be a moment. I was telling you guys this last night. Like, I wouldn't even try TJ, right? Like,
Right.
And probably not Bobby, right?
Yep.
Bobby, he's just younger and faster. He's probably fight dirty. There just comes a time where you just know, you just don't even test anymore.
Yeah, but
Because what if you fail?
old man. Like I never knew about. Like we used to have old guys that would come up and wrestle in the wrestling room.
Right.
And they're old guys. I say they're probably our age,
Yeah.
But you just have some when you're older, especially against younger opponent. Like I'm not letting this guy.
I think
beat
TJ
me.
would maybe take it easy because he'd be afraid of hurting me.
Well, you might,
Right.
and also you got some girth. Like I'm not letting this kid beat me. I mean,
Right.
That's
That's
how I feel
the
about it.
problem. Is we probably get into something and then somebody's going to get hurt. It
Right.
might be me.
Yeah.
I remember. I mean, I played a lot of basketball, and I never could beat my dad. Never ever beat my dad.
Okay.
And I remember the first time I vividly remember this. We were playing basketball, and I was up like 5 or 6 points. We always played to 15, so it was probably like 11-5 or something.
Yep.
And and such an idiot. I was a mouthy kid. And I
can't
wasn't even a
imagine
kid.
that.
Yeah, and I wasn't even a kid. I was probably I think I was like 19 or 20 at this point. And I like faked a shot. And he went for it, and I drove by him, and I chirped him as I went by him. Something old man. And I went up for a layup, and he freaking fouled me from behind, threw me head first into a freaking retaining wall. Right, like there's a retaining wall behind this court we were playing on.
Yep.
Cut, I'm bleeding. He's like, "Oh man, you're gonna have to go get stitches." I'm like, "Not until this game's over, right?" Like I'm gonna get. That's
this
what it's gonna
W.
be with Braden. One of these days, you're gonna be like, "Oh, you're gonna go," and he's gonna be like, "I'm finishing you."
I've been telling him for a few years that by the time he can beat me, he won't care to. It won't matter
Right.
anymore.
So, didn't meet Cindy, but got married.
Yep.
Became a dad.
Yep.
And was horse training at the same time.
Yep.
And made the decision because we've talked about this. You loved horses.
Oh,
you
yeah.
loved breaking horses.
Yep.
But made the decision that with the family that wasn't the
Right.
and at this point in your life you have never done sales.
Well, I would say that because I was running my own business with horse training,
Right.
And it really, to me, it didn't matter how good I was at training. I was good at training horses, but really it wasn't about that. It was about keeping my barn full and keeping the customers happy and taking care of people. So really for me, it was a lot more about that.
So service, customer service.
Yeah, and so I do think that I got a lot of sales training,
Just
so to speak, out of just running the business and
Right.
and having to, put advertising, because back then I would advertise on Craigslist.
Don't tell me Craigslist, man. Eric Jenkins was telling the story yesterday when he was just making a bucket. He decided to put an ad out on Craigslist,
Yep.
and somebody called and ordered, and 2 people called and ordered buckets the same day. He's like, "Man, this internet's powerful."
Yeah.
So that's what you
Yeah.
did. You were on
Yep.
Craigslist.
And then I would put a little ad in the newspaper, the local Sioux Falls Argus Leader newspaper. And
What'd your ad say?
Oh
Will
God!
break
I
horses?
would have said no. It was like horse trainer. I would say soft hands.
Soft hands.
So if you're a horse guy, soft hands means that you're not going to be jerking horses around. It means that you're going to break them to be supple and soft and relaxed.
Right.
And you're not going to have this strung up, worried horse. So that's and for me, I was into, there was a natural horsemanship movement kind of going on then. I'm sure it's still going on, but where you're just working with the horse instead of against the horse a little more.
Maybe that's why you're such a
And
good putter. It's the soft hands.
It's
soft
just
hands.
picking up that touch, that feel.
Yeah.
But that's what I would say. I would say horse trainer, soft hands, $500 a month.
That's what it was.
Yep, something
Wow.
like that.
So, but that wasn't enough for the family.
No, it really wasn't. I think I think one year I grossed $100,000 in business, and I had an employee. I was riding 15 horses a day,
Jeez.
just grinding, and I think I grossed $17,000.
Or you netted 17.
Yeah, netted. Sorry,
Right.
netted.
At the end of the year.
At the end of the year, you do the tax return, you see that, and you go, in the end, it's like I only have one butt.
Right.
I can only swing a leg over one horse at a time, and the people who are paying me to be the guy that's on their horse.
Right.
They really don't want my intern hopping on the horse.
Because his hands might not be soft.
Right, absolutely. And so, at that point, I started looking elsewhere. So I got a job in town, and I was doing both for a while.
What was your job?
I was working for Cigna Home Delivery Pharmacy on the phones, selling prescription medications. Not selling, I mean delivering prescription
Right.
medications, customer service. Yep.
Well, that certainly will have played into some phone skills later in life for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, and computer skills, the ability to toggle between screens and keep 2 or 3 systems running at the
Because
same
you
time.
probably, having been in the Army and then training horses, probably weren't fantastic on computers and
Right.
technology.
I tell you what, you try to get a good job with horse trainer as your last job.
Yeah.
Even if you're a business owner, people go. I mean, and you should have. My manager later told me, because we became friends, obviously, after I worked for him, and he knew what kind of worker I was and everything. And he said, "Man, when you came in to interview, I thought this is going to be the shortest interview
Right.
that I've ever, said." And so the first question he asked me when I sat down in the interview, he said, "Okay, if you're sitting at a keyboard and you put your hands on the home row, which letter is your middle finger on?" And I said, "Okay, which is what it is." And he's like, "Oh, you can actually type." I said, "Yeah, I can type," And so that was like, "Oh, okay, he's not just a dummy,"
Right.
And I got overlooked for quite a few jobs. I tried to pick up a bricklaying job, and
Thank God you were freaking overlooked for that job.
right through, and I probably would have been good at it, but through word of mouth, I found a guy, and he was looking for somebody, but he heard horse trainer, and he's like, "Yeah, nah, I'm not interested." And I met him.
Bricklaying job was not interested in somebody that broke horses for a living?
Right, and I met him 2 years later, and he looked at me and he went,
Damn it.
"Oh, I should have gave you an interview."
Yeah, I bet. That's
know?
funny you say that about typing. I worked, my first job with the computer was at a customs brokerage, but I was working in the warehouse. And for whatever reason, my boss, he moved me into the customs brokerage. And I remember this day, I typed like this, like one finger at a time.
Yep.
And he would always walk behind me and just laugh at me, like, try using 2 fingers, try using 3 fingers,
Right.
that kind of thing. But luckily, that's how I learned how to type, because I was terrible on computers. But a little better now. I can use all 5 of my fingers.
Yep. Luckily, I had a good. So I came from a school that had 1 computer in the whole school, and I came to South Dakota, and all of a sudden I was in a little Lutheran school, a little Christian school in Iowa, and we had 3 grades in 1 classroom. There's only 4 kids in my grade. We had like I said, 1 computer in the whole building, and there was a poster on the wall of a keyboard. Like that's what we had, right? And so
that's how you got to learn what a keyboard was. Right. There was a poster.
Right. So we move up here in 6th grade. I get put into keyboard class, and these other kids already been typing for a year.
Oh,
and
man.
So I'm trying to catch up and learn it. And luckily, the guy that ended up being my offensive line coach as a high schooler, still a good family friend, was just tough on me. He was hard on me. He rode me. He made sure that I wasn't cheating. He just watched me like a hawk, and I just hated him. And I'm so thankful for that.
Right.
Because he was the one that said, "No, you can do this," and he made me learn how to type. And obviously, that's a big skill these days, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's cool. You're going there with somebody that was tough on you. Is that something like throughout your life that you've had these different guys that were tough on you, and just because I feel like our generation, people were a little tougher on us. Maybe they just expected a little bit more, and I think it's harder now with kids, because you got to be careful you don't offend them, or, right, like that.
Yep.
If you look back at your childhood, do you see these guys or these figures that were like, man, I'm so thankful that guy, was just hard on me?
It's so important as men that we step up, because absolutely, I look back at the men in my life that I learned from, and just even people that I saw from a distance and saw how they lived their lives, and absolutely, it's critical that you get somebody that gives you that tough love. Says, I'm in your corner, but this isn't good enough.
Right.
I know you can do better.
You can be better than what you are.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And is that something that you have? I mean, I believe you have, but is that something, the same kind of thing that you're doing with your boy, with Braden? Right? Have you had to have those moments where you're like, come on, kid?
Yeah. I mean, I obviously any parent has got to lay a lot. I'm pretty lax. I also understand the long game, and I understand that he's going to be my son God willing, he's going to be my son for the next 40 years. And I'm going to have a lot of time I feel like I'm going to have a lot of time to put that knowledge into him. So I just try to guide and just curve just a little bit, but I also try to let him be sort of who he is and do what he wants to do. And looking back on it now, there's some things I could have pushed him to be more, but I think in the end you learn when you get to make your own decisions and fail, you just learn so much more out of it too. So it's, I guess I kind of let my kids fail a little bit.
Right.
I tell them what they should do, but I don't always make
them do it. Right.
Yeah, and maybe I should do more of this. If I think that's
well,
my
I think it's
fault,
too late with him.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
He's going into his second year of college now.
Yeah.
Like there's no making a second year college student do anything. Maybe Lainey.
Right.
Maybe you could make her do something. But
I think it's working. He had a class that he did not do well in the first semester of college. And he came home a little bit, tail tucked, and said, I got this bad grade, and I said, hey man, first of all, it's your money.
Right.
You paid for that class. You paid for that poor grade, and now you're the only one that can make it up.
Right.
And you just have to decide. Am I going to be a guy that does well at college, or am I not? And he retook the class and aced it the second semester. So I'm hopeful.
Cool.
I'm hopeful that keeps going for him.
I saw a letter on the fridge. Did pretty good last year.
Yep.
Second semester.
Absolutely. He made a National Honor Society Dean's List. So, yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. Proud
so
of him.
you back to your story a little bit. We rabbit trail, which we always do sometimes.
I always do.
I know for sure. Me too. But you because Copperhead's a big part of your life.
Huge.
Right?
Yep.
And
huge.
when I know you also worked for John Deere for a period of time after training horses.
Yep.
So you went from training horses, you were working at a pharmacy. How Deere happened and then Copperhead? What happened there?
Well, I actually went to Copperhead first, so I was trying to figure out what to do next with my life.
You were coaching baseball.
I was coaching baseball, and or maybe Braden and Tommy were on the same team at that time. They were on the same team for sure. I can't remember if I coached that team or if it was one just a little later, but I actually thought I was going to sell insurance for a little bit. So I approached Emily Berg, who is one of my bosses now, and said, hey, I'm thinking about selling insurance, and I need to get some quoting in and some meetings in, and would you be willing to have a meeting with me? However I said it, and she said, we just did that, so I'm not interested in that.
Right.
But Kevin would like to talk to you. Why don't you stop up at the shop sometime? So I went over and stopped at the shop, and I can remember Kevin getting out a Furrow Cruiser insert and saying, this is it. This is what we're doing. And I'm looking at this piece of plastic going, that's it, huh?
Yeah. This is the big thing.
Yep. And I think about, it took a little while for them to hire me. They were actually concerned about me being a horse trainer too. I met with the other half of Copperhead is the Terveen family, and so I sat down with Terveens and Kevin and had an interview with them. And Dave, the patriarch of that family, was pretty assertive about, well, what's up with these horses? What's going on with the horses?
Were you still training at that time?
And no, I still owned a couple horses, but I was pretty much done. And I said, no, I'm selling my last horses. I don't have a barn to train out of. I'm moving on right now.
Who knew that training horses was a negative thing?
Right? I did not when I got into it, but now I get it kind of. But anyway, it took them a little while, but they ended up hiring me. And so my first show was Farm Progress in Illinois.
Which is a couple weeks away.
Yeah,
right?
huge show, right? You go there and it's grain bins all set up, and it's, I don't know.
What year was that?
It's huge. That would have been, I think, 2011 was the first year I went to that.
Yep.
So it was, it was an odd year, so it would have been in Illinois. And I went to Farm Progress and
just you and Kevin, or you and
Kevin and I and Todd Terveen.
Okay.
So the three of us went, did the farm show, and then
that must have been something.
I tell you what, and I couldn't believe it when they went there. We set up this booth. We had a 20 by 20 booth, and it was kind of it looked good.
Right.
But it was, like you had this burlap that you wrapped around a chair that was on top of a table, and you had to clip it in with clips in the back to make it look nice and wrapped. We had a TV on top of that. And, I just remember thinking, I don't know.
I
It
quit
was
training horses for this?
Well, I don't know. But then people started walking through, and a guy would stop and look at our display, and I would have sat back in the back of the booth and waited for them to ask me a question. But Kevin walked right up there and said, "Hey, any questions I can answer for you?" And that guy was like, "Yes." And just, and I started to hear them tell stories and realized really quickly that we had something. I mean,
Right.
in the first 2 hours of being there, I knew we had something. And, back in those days, selling 100 rows was crazy, right? And I think we sold over 100 rows at that first show. And I mean, I was in the mix, what planter do you have? And all I knew was 1700s
Right.
to start out with, And it's like, well, I got a deer 1700. And they're like, okay, great. I know this will work, and let me tell you about these things. And then, a little bit later, a guy said, well, I got a 7,000. I'd go, 7,000? Can we do it on a 7,000? And
Kevin be like, yep.
Yep, you need this kit. And then so they show me the conversion kit,
Right.
and you just work through all the steps. You start learning it. And I knew, right away, basically coming back from that show that we had a good product, and that, the guys I was working for were working hard, and they were hungry for it. And so I didn't look back for about 3 years.
Okay.
Went really hard. I feel like I got really good at the job. The other part of the job was traveling to visit dealers and set up dealership relationships and that.
And you were all by yourself at this point.
And shoot, the second week of working for him, Emily was supposed to take me on the road and show me how to do dealership visits.
Yeah.
And then she kind of backed out on the first day. She said, you know what, you did really good at the show. You can go ahead and just start visiting dealers.
All by yourself.
And so I hopped in a vehicle and put gas in it and started driving, walking into dealers and talking to them about, hey, you ever seen this thing before? And dropping off brochures and, yep. And
that, your whole fall off the horse, get back on again, and just keep trying probably really benefited you at the beginning, because it was, I know that's not easy.
Oh man, I remember the first months of being on the road. I'd sit in front of these dealerships and just have this pit in my stomach, like, I gotta walk in here, and these guys, they look at you so funny when you walk in the door, like, who are you? Where are you from? You're not from here. You don't belong here.
Yep.
And you walk in the door, and you and then it's like when you have that pit in your stomach, and then you go in and you have success, and it's like, holy crap, I just went in there and I sold 100 rows, and I almost didn't walk in the door.
Right.
Like I was almost too scared to walk in the door, and then I went in and made $10,000.
Crazy.
And so you just, it was unreal. And so, then you're just building on success, and well, that didn't work, this will work, and you just get more and more confident the more you do it. It's just repetition.
Yeah.
At some point it's just repetition.
I mean, and I know how hard that is, because you walk in and you're like, maybe they'll give me a business card. Like, if I could just get a business card here, somebody to call back later, that'd be great.
Right.
Like, just let me talk to somebody.
Right. Slip the wheel on the counter, grab the business card.
this
All right, I'm going to
before?
call you later.
See you
Thanks.
later. Yeah, I'm out. Yeah. So
I tried not to do that, but
it's hard though, because especially if you get a few no's in a row, and that's one of the things we've talked about before with young salespeople, is really you got to have zero fucks to give, right?
Yep.
If somebody tells you no, it's like, okay, I got to get back up on that horse and ask again.
And now coming at it from this side, now you need to get to that no as fast as you can. Not as fast as you can, but even at a farm show, somebody walks up to you, and I'm just qualifying right off the bat, like, you got a question, somebody's looking at your display, like, hey, what kind of planter do you run? Or just trying to pull a few questions, because you don't want to waste his time either. I don't want to waste his time. I don't want him to waste my time. I want to be helping people that need help.
Well, and that's the beauty of that Furrow Cruiser and that product, is you had to see it right away how it was going to help guys.
Right.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And
well, especially, I sold, it was August when I started. I sold for 6 months before I got to go be in the field with it.
Right.
And so then we finally got to go do some video in the field, and then Kevin showed me how to dig seed and how to look for sidewall compaction and all that stuff. And then you see it in action, and that's the pudding, right? That's the gravy right there. You start to go, this real. Now I know why people were walking up to me and giving me good reviews all year at the farm show, because this is really the real deal.
This actually works.
Right.
I'm not selling bullshit.
Right. Yeah. And then that second year of hitting those dealers and hitting those farm shows, then you're you're
You're
walking
sitting there
in with
like,
a whole different attitude.
Copperhead Ag here,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
You remember
I
last
got
year?
what you need.
Yeah. So, but 3 years, and then
Yep.
you were like, I'm out.
Yeah, I got a little burnout. It was a lot of travel, and it was just it kind of got to be the business keeps growing, and these guys are serial entrepreneurs, and they're starting other businesses and doing other things, and it just got to be that it was mostly just me going to the shows, and then me doing all the dealership visits and entering the orders and answering the phones, and like I just did everything. I packed boxes and
Right.
whatever I could do to help, and eventually I did. I got a little burned out and got an opportunity to go work for a local deer dealership, and so I was driving over to Laverne, and it's like a 35-minute drive. And I called Kevin and said, hey, I'm going to pull out. And I trained Brad Kramer. We
Yep.
hired him right before I left and trained him in on how to sell. I gave him a month. Instead of giving him 2 weeks, I gave him a month because I knew I was the only,
Right.
the only avenue to sell. So I gave him a month and went and worked for deer for 3 months. And that was in 2014. That was right when the market just tanked. Like everybody had just bought. Like if they needed a 12-row planter, they just bought a 16-row planter. And if they needed a 300 horsepower tractor, they just bought a 350 horsepower tractor. And they had equipment, and then the prices went to crap.
Yeah.
And I sold some stuff, but it was pretty tough.
Yep.
And I also didn't step into a territory that was an established territory. They were actually having me open up new territory. And so, I was just cold calling. Again, I'm just driving around the country looking for grain legs.
Right.
Looking for
Just
grain
want to
bins.
stop and talk to a
Right.
guy.
I just want to find anybody who are the farmers.
Right.
I'm just like kind of taking inventory, and I knew a few guys around. Obviously, from horse training, there was people that have horses and
Yep. Of course.
farm. Obviously, so using those relationships the best I could, and did okay. But I could kind of see the writing on the wall. That's a straight up commission job, and I always thought John Deere sales guys like, oh, you just sit in the office and people walk in and you sell them stuff, and that was not what I did,
Right.
And so I kind of got there and got this awakening, and I'm like, all right, I gotta probably find something different, and so I actually left and went to work for Fastline. Fastline's a magazine,
Yep.
a marketing company. They do a lot more than magazines, but the thing they've been known for the most is a farm tractor paper, like Tractor House or whatever, just selling.
Yep.
So
Selling subscriptions. Yep.
picked up a sales territory for them in southern Minnesota and did that, and that went really well. That was great. You're walking into dealerships, you had somebody who was already your contact, and they'd already been buying stuff from the company for years,
So you just
and
had
so
to-
you're just like you're
building a
stepping in.
relationship.
Yep, and so you could build on that business, and then you can start to bring in new relationships and that. And I had some other relationships in Minnesota because of selling closing wheels there.
Right.
So that was a really great fit for me. So I did that for probably really only another 3 or 4 months, and then Kevin asked me to meet him for lunch.
Right.
And so I met Kevin for lunch. He said, hey, we want you to come back. We want you to be the sales manager, and we're going to let you hire somebody, an additional person.
Yep.
So I came back, and then it was Brad and I, and then I hired Jared, and so the three of us for a few years, and then I hired Tim, and so that's kind of
How it went.
Yep.
And throughout that whole
gone.
process, I mean, you've obviously worked pretty close with Kevin, but really have helped push Copperhead to this next level past just the furrow cruiser, right? Because
Yep.
Copperhead's doing so much more than just a closing wheel now.
Yep. Yeah.
It's
really grown.
What's it been like? I mean, this is one of the things, and we've certainly talked about this before. But when you're trying to solve a problem, you don't always have to make. Let's just talk about down in combines. You don't.
Okay.
It's not a big change sometimes.
Sure.
How have you seen where a small little change can make a huge impact for farmers? Give me an example of something like that.
Well,
It doesn't have to be down in combines. It could be anything.
Right. Well, a lot of times it's just even like you might have the right tool, but you're maybe not using it in the right way. It's like for concaves, for instance, guys take our concaves and they try to run them like their OEM set of concaves, and it's a different machine.
Right.
And maybe corn's a little similar to how you run a round bar. A
Yep.
little. It's close. If you start with OEM settings and our concave in corn, you're gonna be fine.
Right.
But you go to beans, or especially start to go to wheat, and we run the machine way different when you start to get into smaller grains. You're talking about lower rotor speed and concaves more open and just different things like that. And so it's having guys make that mental switch, and it's not that you need a different tool, it's that you got to just think a little bit differently.
Use that tool a little bit differently.
Yep.
And it can make a
used to.
huge difference.
Yes.
So one of the things that's been cool just to see is your passion for agriculture. And really, one of the things I wanted to make sure we talked about, and we could probably sit here, this could be like a 17-hour podcast. We'll just talk forever. We don't want that, but regenerative farming.
Yeah.
Something you've been super passionate about,
Yeah.
and something that you that really intrigues you.
It does.
What is it about that is like, that you feel like that's such a big part of the future of agriculture, really around the world?
Sure. Well, I've always really felt a connection to the land. I don't know, if it's just growing up on the farm and having that background, but I've really felt connected to the land. And when I was in 4-H as a kid, I remember seeing a high school kid that did this soil depth deal, and I can't even remember the details, but basically he had a clear tube of soil, and he was showing the topsoil and the subsoil and all that, and he was talking about erosion and how we're losing soil and how we need to farm different and we need to do things different. And as a little kid, you look at that and you're like, how is nobody seeing this? How is nobody doing this? And it just
Right.
it was almost painful to me to hear that farmers know about this problem but continue to farm in the same way over and over and over again. And you were using more and more and more inputs to get the same output. And so it's from that age, from a young age, I've known that we could farm better, and that we could do small things better. And there's a lot of guys doing a great job. So if you don't feel like I'm getting down on farmers, because I love the land, I love farmers, and I know there's a reason why you're doing things the way you're doing them. And
Right.
so that's not. I hope nobody feels judged. I'm not like that. But I drive around the country and I see the black snow drifts in the winter. And that's topsoil that we're losing. And if you farm, or if you leave nature to itself, it takes 100 years to make an inch of topsoil. But if guys are using some regenerative practices where you're doing either less or no tillage, and you're keeping living roots in the system for longer, and really cycling nutrients. And I mean, there's all the nitrogen we need sitting right here in the air we're breathing.
Right.
Those plants can fix that nitrogen. You can get a lot of the inputs just right here from the environment. And it used to be that you had livestock on your farm, and so you put that manure back in the soil, and so you're just cycling those nutrients instead of
But livestock's hard, man. Not nobody. There's a lot that still do, but it's hard enough to farm, much less having cattle.
Yeah, and that's why we're not doing it, right? Because of the time and the labor.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people that are doing it, but there's a lot more that aren't. But there have been people that started farming on rocky soil and have built up inches of topsoil in years, in 5 years, 10 years, are building back an ecosystem. Mother Nature wants to be covered. You turn something black, and it's going to grow something. It's going to grow weeds. Whatever's missing is going to, whatever
it's going to figure it out.
It's going to pop in there. And so, and really the earth is a limited resource, and if we just continually mine it, it's not going to last forever. And I'm a long-term thinker, and I think about my kids, and I think about their kids, and it just, it concerns me to see topsoil blowing off, and to also know, I hate spinning my wheels too. I don't like, Kevin Berg would call it tripping over dollars to pick up pennies.
Right.
But sometimes we might be putting in $400 or $500 an acre of inputs, whereas if we backed off of those inputs, and we're doing that to raise, say, 200 bushel corn, right? If we back off all those inputs and do it in a little different way, maybe we're only raising 140 bushel corn. But at what profit margin?
Right.
And what are our input costs? And I'm not saying it's easy, because I know it's not. And I've talked to enough people and I've read enough books to know that there's not a cut and dried answer, and there's not an easy way to transition.
But it's something everybody's talking
It's
about.
an expensive thing. So, I'm not pie in the sky about this, but I do think that, especially early adopters. I mean, you saw, I was at an organic conference this week up in Cokato, Minnesota.
Yep.
And there's 150 guys there. I talked to a guy that has 3,700 acres of organic, and he's got 5,000 or 6,000 acres in transition right now.
Wow.
And And I'm also not saying organic's the answer either, because right now the way most people are doing organic, that requires a lot of tillage. Um, but we still like. So I'm not saying I have a perfect answer. I don't think anybody does. But there's a lot of interest in doing it better, doing it in a more healthy way for people,
Yep.
doing it in a more healthy way for the land.
And
that's
for
really,
the pocketbook
health is
too,
everything.
right? Because if you do
Right.
do that, I mean, let's say you do drop your corn from $200 an acre, but or 200 bushels an acre, and your inputs from 400 down to 200, but you're getting 140. I mean, math is math, right?
Right, and then you can maybe sell it $10 instead of
Right.
$5. So
Exactly.
and especially for the guys that get on it early, I really think there's. I mean, if I had land, that's what I'd be trying to do, because these early adopters are really going to be the ones that are set up for success long term, because they're going to know the systems. They're going to have already made all the mistakes. They're going to make the profits early.
Yep.
When people could make the good money, because that's not going to last forever. These high organic prices aren't going to last if the whole nation shifts that way.
Absolutely.
So, or grass-fed beef. I mean, that's a huge thing right now, right? And if I could jump on that bandwagon and profit off it, and you could be a capitalist, a hardcore capitalist, and go this way.
Hold on. You are a capitalist. You're an entrepreneur, and that's the other part.
Absolutely.
That's the other part of your story. I mean, you're wearing a brown jug hat. So,
Yep.
2 years ago, and we briefly touched on that before, and I don't want to glaze over that, but you decided, you know what? I want to own my own business.
Yep.
I like my job.
I do.
I love helping farmers.
Yep.
You're clearly passionate about that, but I want to do my own thing.
Yep.
Why the jug?
Well,
what was that about?
I got mad because we only have one car wash in town, and it's the Jug. It's the only car wash in Hartford. We're a small town, it's 2,500 people or whatever, and we only have one car wash. And every time, and I don't like to go to Sioux Falls if I can help it. I like to buy stuff
Support
here.
local.
And I work here, and my kids are here, and there's no need for me to go to town if I don't have to.
Right.
And so I'd rather do my grocery shopping here, and I'd rather just be here. I think it costs me less money, even though I spend maybe a little more at the store. I think long term it costs me less money. Anyway, the car wash was always broken down. The owner lived a ways away, and it was hard for him to be here, and he'd owned it long enough that he just kind of coasting on it. And I got mad, and I called and I said, hey, can I just lease this car wash from you? Like,
right.
You keep running the gas station, I'll just lease this part of the building, and I'll just run the car wash. And the only reason I want to do it is because I want a good car wash in town.
Right.
Sick of
I'm tired of my truck being
damn
dirty.
car, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that was the reason that I made the first phone call. And at that time, I had already helped Copperhead get through 2 different business purchases,
Yep.
So we had purchased RK products, and then we had licensed the concave patent and brought that product on. So I knew about buying a business and evaluating
passionate about business and
I am.
math and
Yes.
and looking at those
Systems.
things. Yeah,
Yep.
processes.
Absolutely. And so
Whole different thing though when you're like, all right, I'm gonna put my own money in here. Let's go.
Oh yeah. And but I was confident. I had an advisor help me run the numbers on the business, and I knew that it was going to be a good business. And I knew it wasn't going to set the world on fire. And I wasn't going to get rich quick, but I also knew that I wasn't going to lose my ass either.
Right.
So
what was more difficult, telling your parents you were going into the military, or telling your wife that you wanted to buy a liquor store, gas station, car wash? Which was harder?
Well, I was so dumb when I went into the military. That was pretty easy.
Pretty easy.
Yeah, my parents knew me, and they knew that once I had something set, like I was just going to wait till I was 18 if they said no.
Right.
So they just went ahead and signed the paperwork.
They're like,
yeah.
Cindy was the same way. She's like, damn it.
Her initial reaction was no, and I understand. She is family minded. Her brain works so much different than mine, and it's such a win for our family to have her be different than me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not judgy at all, but it's she doesn't like that risk. She doesn't like even necessarily the recognition of being the owner of a business, because it's just
wants to be low key.
Not a place that she's coming from,
Right.
that she's used to coming from, and so she was just like, well, what we might get judged by some friends and all that, and I just said, honey, first of all, we're going to run the numbers, and if it's a good business, we're going to buy it.
Right.
And if it's not, we are not going to buy it. I'm not going to risk my family's livelihood and our future on something that's a bad investment. It seems like a risk from the outside, but when you know the numbers and you have an expert look at them with you and you run through them, like, it's a sure thing.
Plus, you're
If
also
you run it, if you get out
used
and
to
run it.
falling off a horse thousands of times and getting back up. We'll just figure it out.
Right.
Right. If,
Right.
It,
Yeah, we'll
if,
figure
if
it
it
out.
looks good, even if we get a challenge,
Right.
we're just gonna figure it out.
Right. Right. And then also, you know, my other point to her was, hey, look, the other thing is the people that are in town that don't want to support us, that want to, if there's somebody here that wants to say, oh, those guys, they think they're cool because they own the gas station or whatever, I'm like, those aren't our people.
Right.
We don't need those people in our lives. You know, we are here for the people that are our people.
Your people.
You know, and our motto at Jug, or our thing is serving our town.
Right.
And that's what we do. We're here to serve our town.
Well,
We're a liquor store and we're a casino, and it seems kind of funny to have that, but that's really what it is. These people are working all day, and they need a half an hour to go sit at the lottery machine, and they
Right.
plug $20 in, and it's cheaper than going to the movie.
Right.
You know, and shoot, they might even win $400
Well,
bucks.
you
know?
just did a fundraiser, right? Like when you talk about serving, you just did a barbecue, or was it a barbecue or a lunch? What was the?
Well,
what-
that was just a customer appreciation
just
lunch,
feed
so it wasn't,
just feed the town.
Yeah. No, we just bought a bunch of brats, and Reliabank, who we work with in town, they got a big grill.
Yep.
And supplied the people the grill, so they came over and we just served lunch and you know.
Is she happy now as she sees it? Is she like, you
Yeah,
know what?
yeah.
Hey, thank you for helping push me out of my comfort zone. No,
She hasn't said that.
She's thinking it though.
Right. But no, but she's definitely thinking about the business, and she thinks about things that I don't think about that are really good for our business. Like right now, just little things like there's flower pots sitting in front of our doors right now, and there's a nice bench that she had put there for people to sit down and have a smoke. You know, it's like she's just thoughtful in a way that I'm not. She does Christmas decorations. I wouldn't
because
do that,
your
you know?
business processes, systems,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
let's go. I'm going to run the numbers. I'm going to do this,
Yes.
constantly running things. And she's like,
Yep.
what? Do
He's like,
people
hey,
need a
why
place to
haven't you
sit?"
painted that
Yeah.
wall yet? You know, that's her.
Right.
And she helps me. She keeps me honest. She keeps me going, and she sees the things that I don't see. And
Yeah.
so she's been, wonderful.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Yeah.
So obviously, and there's been, you're 40 now. That's a lot that we just went through. What's the next?
Yeah.
I mean, you've done a lot of shit, man. Like,
yeah.
You've
It's
done
been a
some
good life.
things. What's the next 40? Like, what are you passionate about? Is it, you know, well, and we haven't even talked about, before we get to there, and you've said this before, having a girl changed you, right? Having a daughter changed you. What do you mean by that when you said, you know, just having a daughter just kind of changed your outlook?
Oh man, I don't know exactly what I was thinking when I said that, but she's so it's hard to say, but it's the truth. So Braden's not my biological son,
Right.
and he's my boy. I love him. We've been through everything together. He's like, I got him.
He's your guy.
He's my boy.
Yep.
It's a little different, and maybe it's this way with all parents that have kids. You know, there's just some kids that you just connect with just a little bit more because they're just maybe a little bit more like you or not like you or however it works. But Lainey and I connect really well. She's a good artist. She's a good musician, and she does theater, which I did do theater in high school also.
Wait a minute. You sang,
Yeah.
and you were in drama.
Yep.
Okay.
All-state chorus, buddy.
Yeah, and
All-state chorus,
all-state
all-state
chorus.
football.
Yeah, okay. Multi-talented.
No,
but,
God gave me so many blessings. It's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
but
I've
daughter,
been so blessed.
daughter.
She's so anyway. You know, and I don't know. Maybe it's the girls too. They just you know, like find a place to your heart. But it seems like she understands me really well, and we connect really well. And it's just been fun to be your dad and see her grow and
Right.
you know,
Just
learn.
different.
And yeah, it's just different. And she's got different challenges than Braden has. Everybody has different
Yeah.
challenges in their lives, you know. And
Well,
so,
you're going to get into a real big one right now because she just turned 13. So this next 5 years
Teenage.
is going to be
Yeah.
going to be tough for you.
Yeah.
How are you
Yeah.
going to mitigate through
Yeah.
that?
Well, it'll be interesting. She's been such a sweetheart pretty much her whole life. And she's never really been in any trouble. So it'll be interesting to see if that stays as a teenager or if she starts to push a little bit. She already has started to push a
Right.
little bit, but you expect that. You want that. You know, I want her to be, independent, and I want her to have her own edge and her own, her own identity, and she's doing.
How are
really,
you going to
for 13,
react
she's doing great.
when she brings a boy home to meet you? What are you going to do? Are you going to go scary dad? Are you going to pull out your bow, be like straight Rambo, like, hey,
Yeah.
what's up?
No, I'm the I'm
Or is
more
Cindy
of
going to
the-
be with your guns? Like, who's going to be the crazy one here?
No, we're both pretty welcoming, I would say. We want the kids to be here.
Right.
This house is got plenty of room, and we got plenty of food in the fridge and in the pantry.
Right.
And we want them here. If the kids are here, I know where they're at. I know what's happening in their lives. I know their friends. I know who their friends are. I know who their friends' parents are.
Yep.
And that's what I love about small town too. Is kind of I do like to know everybody.
Yep.
And it just being here now for as long as we have been, we're really a part of the community now. In
So you're
Hartford.
not going to threaten to shoot a kid?
No.
Not the first boy she brings home, you're not going to threaten to shoot him?
No. And I'll be the first one to tell her if it's time for that boy to go. I'm not going to force it, but I'll be the first one to let her know. This is how I feel about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not gonna hold back on her or anything like that. But I'm also gonna respect her decisions and let her take her time and make that choice on her own. So I don't know what that is.
You say that now.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, we already had a little. There's a little boy who she was dating a little bit here in middle school, and she had some issues, and she was being too much of the relationship, and I just kind of laid it out for her and
said, hey, it's time to move along.
If you want to have a conversation, this is how I would do it. And she went, oh, perfect, I'm going to do that. And she did it, and it worked great, and they could still be friends and whatever, and so it's good.
That's awesome.
It's good.
So next,
guiding,
yeah. This is how you break up with him if you want to break up with him.
Just saying.
Right. That's fair. So next 40 years, what's next? Like, you're passionate about so many different things. What's the future of Jake? I mean, you are a businessman. You're a husband, you're a dad, you're all these things. What's next? Grandpa down the road, but that's gonna be a while, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's next?
Lately, no matter what part of my life I'm working on, I'm a guy that's working on life, always working on myself. Podcasts, reading books, networking with friends, meeting new people, just trying to surround myself with a better and better group of people. And not saying that other people are worse or better, but people that match my personality, people that will drive me to
challenge
do better, But really, I was thinking about it prior to this podcast, and one of the messages that I've been feeling a lot lately is just continual improvement. And what that means to me is, like, you just take any mundane task out of your life, and how you do one thing is how you're going to do everything. Like when I was in my first studio apartment living all by myself, I had a pile of dishes in the sink.
Right.
A pile of dishes, and the only time I ever did a dish was when I needed it to do something else. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was kind of nasty, right? But that's how I lived, and I was comfortable with that. And now I'm a person who pretty much my routine is every morning I get up and I put away the clean dishes because I washed them the night before, and I load the dishwasher with anything that's out, and then through the day I'm I'm keeping on top of that task, and I'm putting the dishes away. And not to say that I never let it slide at all, but I'm just saying I'm just trying to do each thing in my life better
Every day.
individually every day, and life is made up of all these little moments that don't seem like much, but when you stack them all up together, they turn into this kind of beautiful picture, and my life's turned pretty beautiful here.
Yep. I'd say.
So it's that. It's just working on whatever piece that's sticking out to me that I'm not doing as good at. It's just taking that piece and working on it. And if I don't know how to do it myself, is finding somebody to help me, and I'm really comfortable with looking at that. And the other thing is just continuing to have that next step mentality. I mean, if all this is gone tomorrow, the person that I am now, it wouldn't matter.
Get back on the horse.
It would not matter whatsoever. I could lose everything, especially if I still had my people. Man, if I still had my wife and my kids, a few friends.
Right.
It doesn't matter what could happen. I just know that that I am going to continually work on improvement, and that I'm always going to be a leader, and that I'm going to try to lead from the front and lead by example, and that's just,
That's powerful,
you know,
man.
I want to reach down and be that hand to pick the next guy up, and I'm reaching up to get the hand up from the guy that went ahead of me, you know,
Yeah.
because we're all built, you know, we're building on the backs of giants, you know, the people that built this country and you know, this town or different businesses, the ag industry, you know, we're on the backs of giants, and we see the things that they did, and we just, you know, make a little tweak to make it a little better.
Back to the
and-
little tweak makes a big change, big
yeah,
difference.
and it just, you know, so I just want to keep building, I guess, and I just want to see how good of a man I can be. I want to see, you know, I'm a hunter. I want to see how good I can get at that.
How good of a hunter I can be. How good of
Absolutely.
a dad I can be.
Absolutely.
How good of a golfer. Or are
Yeah,
you giving
yeah.
up on golf?
No. Golf comes and goes a little bit. It's kind of, that's something I do socially, you
Right,
know?
yeah.
And it's not that I don't want to be good at it, because I do.
You just don't have time.
The thing is that it's not the most important to me.
Right.
If everybody went away and it was Jake sitting here living my life and I didn't have any friends that golfed, I would never be on the golf course.
Right.
And I know that in my heart that it's not
But
my
you would be a
sport,
hunter.
It's not my thing. I would be.
Yeah.
I would be. If I can't get anybody to go hunting with me, I'll go sleep in my pickup by myself. Last year I had an elk tag in South Dakota, and I went for 10 days, and I could only have a buddy there for 3 of those days. And it didn't matter one bit to me. I went out there and I slept by myself, and I went out and walked all day by myself and looked for elk and hunted as hard as I could, you know, and it doesn't matter, because that's me. That's my
Right.
thing. That's, you know, and
Oh, that's awesome.
you know,
So-
and you do have to get choosy. At some point, I'm a person who likes a lot of things, and I'm fairly handy at things pretty quickly usually. But I've learned that I really have to work harder on saying no to more things.
Right. 1,440 minutes a day. What are you going to spend them on? Right.
Right.
So obviously the message is get better every day.
Yeah.
Don't ever give up.
Yep.
Right. Is that if there's an entrepreneur, somebody out there, and it's one of the, I've had some different answers to this question. I'm pretty sure I know what yours would be. What would you tell 20-year-old Jake Jass?
Shit, just the details, man. Just do, and really, I mean, I think everybody just needs to just continue to live their life and be themselves. You know, it sounds cliche, just like be the best you can be, but that's really what it boils down to. Is just like taking part, being part of your society, being part of your community, and doing the best you can with every opportunity. Be present. Yep. And I get looking in the future, and I get big dreams, and forget about today just as much as the next guy. But you know, focusing on what I can do today, when I can remember to do that, you know,
Right.
is what I would say.
And we're briefly going to talk about this heartthrob of ag heartthrob. That's what Tommy wanted us to talk about. Say, what's it like to
Tommy.
be the heartthrob of ag?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You don't
I don't know anything about it.
Right.
I don't.
So to me,
don't.
the heartthrob of ag, the one thing, and I've seen this look a couple times we were talking here, I've seen it a couple times over the years. I don't get that. I get the John Gruden, the Chucky look-alike. You get this super intense look in your eyes like John Gruden does.
Okay.
Right? I was flashing there a little bit. But
Okay.
Jake, I'm so glad you came and did this with me. I hope people listen to this because I think you got a really cool story.
Oh, thanks, man.
And I'm thankful that we've become friends. I mean, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This has been great.